Hello and welcome to our series of creative entrepreneurship webinars. My name is Lynsey Smith and I'll be taking you through the first of 5 webinars. This series of webinars is part of Inspire, a project funded by the European Union to support the development of an effective policy framework for the vibrant creative economy in Turkey. The action is implemented by GIZ, the German Development Agency, to build the capacity of the Ministry of Technology and Industry and the development agencies in Istanbul and Izmir. So just to take you through what we'll be talking about today, we have developed 5 webinars. The first one, this one just now, is called Designing Your Business Part 1. The second one is called Designing Your Business Part 2. Third one, Leading Your Business. Fourth one, Engaging with Your Audience Part 1. And the fifth one, Engaging with Your Audience Part 2. Now, each of these webinars will last for approximately 45 minutes, but the content within each webinar, in terms of the tools that you can go away and use, can last up to, upwards of 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours. So it just depends how long you want to spend in each of the tools and each of the references we talk about. I will be delivering the first one, Design Your Business, today. And then Gillian Eason will be delivering the second one, Design Your Business Part 2. We will then divide up the last 3 between the 2 of us. Who are these webinars for? Well, they're for a range of people, whether you're a creative business starting out or a creative business that's established looking to refresh your business model or your approaches. Now, a cultural organisation looking to implement new strategies or approaches. You might be a creative cultural student learning about these sectors and wanting to move into them at one point. You might be a creative hub, either emerging or established, or you might be a policymaker who wants to look at ways to support the creative industries. Each tool is a simple tool that you can take away and develop as far and as wide as you want. But we do advise that you sit with your team, and in some cases your stakeholders, to fill out some of the tools together. Each webinar is accompanied by a webinar guide, which will give you all of the hyperlinks to everything that we reference within this webinar, each of the webinars, whether that's the tools or websites. Throughout the 5 webinars, we will be referencing material or tools developed by Nesta. They developed a toolkit called the Creative Enterprise Toolkit many years ago, but it's been refreshed and it has been translated into 8 different languages, one of which is Turkish. So we'll be referencing some of the tools that were developed within these toolkits throughout the 5 webinars. We'll also be referencing tools from other toolkits and other research pieces, namely the Creative Hub Leaders Toolkit, which was developed by the British Council, Nesta and HEVOS, and various tools and references from other creative and cultural organisations and individuals. The reason that we are referencing Nesta's Creative Enterprise Toolkit tools is that we know that they're tried and tested. This toolkit was based on a programme called Starter for 6, which was a programme that supported creative entrepreneurs across Scotland. This programme was scaled up, developed into a toolkit, and scaled up internationally, delivered across the globe. So we know that the content in this is tried and tested. We know it works. In our first webinar, we'll be talking about vision, mission, and values, theory of change, and impact measurement. I'll take you through 3 simple tools for each. And the reason we've started with these 3 is that these are the kind of first elements you need to think about when setting up a business or refreshing a creative business. When you sit down to do your values, and values is sometimes an area that lots of people leave to the last minute or give themselves 5 minutes to do, but actually your values is invaluable to your overall structure of your business plan, your strategy moving forward. If you and your customers and your community and your stakeholders and your funders are really clear about your values, then they'll be really clear on what your offer is and also what your boundaries are. So this is a really simple tool that Nesta developed, which is just like kind of a quick one that you could sit down with a cup of coffee and think, okay, what are the things that are always going to be important to me? What are the things that are sometimes important? What are the things that are rarely important? And what's never important? And with this one, if you're, self-employed creative, then you'll be doing this yourself. But if you're part of a business with colleagues or employees, then we really advise that you should bring them together to develop this together, so that it's a value that all of you hold and believe in. You can also print, get a big bit of paper, divide it into quarters, and use post-its to add all of your comments together. So it can be quite an interactive one. And you can take, 10 minutes to do this, or you can do, half hour to really deep dive into this. Your values, you'll find, will change over the course of your business. So you might have to go back and refresh them or look at them. So we'll take Nesta, seeing as we've mentioned them quite a lot already, and look at an example, a vision, mission, and value example for them. So this is just something that we put together, a very simple outline on how to outline your vision, mission, and values. And we'll talk through each of these stages together. So your vision, mission, and values, the best way to look at them they're kind of your guiding principles to your business. They are what create your boundaries, but are also an understanding of what you should take on, what you shouldn't. Go into vision first of all, before we talk about Nesta's version of this. Vision is an aspirational statement that outlines what your organisation wants to achieve. Mission is a statement outlining what your organisation does, why it does it, and how it gets it done. And then values. This is usually bullet pointed values that a company embodies, what it offers, and how it interacts with the world. So this can maybe be like 4 or 5 different bullet points. So just going through Nesta's here. So their vision is that by 2030, Nesta will have significantly improved the lives of millions of people. Combining rigour and creativity, we will be a world leader by driving innovation for social good. Their mission is a 3-part mission. So it's they will pursue a fairer start for people, a fairer life for people, and a sustainable future for people. Their values are split into 4. So they're impact-led. Nesta is motivated by its impact and is ambitious about its goals. They are inquisitive. Nesta is always learning and challenging itself and welcomes new ideas. They're inclusive. Nesta involves those affected by its work in shaping its ideas and makes its work accessible to everyone. Now that touches on human-centered design or user-centered design, as some people talk about, and we'll touch on that a little bit later on. And then the 4th one, incisive. Nesta is ready to pivot, but also follows its hunches. So the second example for vision, mission, and values is Creative Edinburgh. And Creative Edinburgh is a networking hub for the creative, cultural, and tech industries in Edinburgh. It's been going for over 13 years now, and I co-founded and co-directed the organisation. I no longer do that anymore, but they're doing brilliantly, and they almost have 10,000 members. So I wanted to use an example that was close to my heart to also illustrate the kind of importance of vision, mission, and values, and how another example of it as well. So just to give you a bit more background, Creative Edinburgh is also a not-for-profit creative hub. It doesn't have it does have an office now, but at the very beginning it didn't, which we'll touch on in a second. And just to confirm, my definition of Creative Hub is a place that brings enterprise and people together to exchange, connect, and collaborate. So we brought people together through a kind of programme of dynamic workshops, events, and talks throughout the year, and professional development opportunities. Our role was to unite, inspire, and promote the creative industries, creative, cultural, and tech industries in Edinburgh. So just going into what our vision was, and you'll see that we had an original vision and what we changed it to. Now, the original vision was that Edinburgh will be known as much for its creative production cluster as for its festivals. Well, I mean, looking back at that now, what does that mean? And I remember the day that my business partner and I developed this, and we were in a really small room with no windows, and we were with a business consultant, and we were at the very beginning of our journey, and we kind of put that in there as a bit of a holder. It didn't really hold much weight or volume. We just kind of did it in order to develop our business plan for a funder that needed it within the next week. So everything was really rushed. And we always looked at that and thought, that's just not our vision. That's not right. And so we did. We went back and we looked at it, and from a much more creative and calm perspective as well. You know, we chatted about it over a coffee, we went for a walk, and then we sat down and wrote it. So, and it can be surprising how long it takes to write one sentence that really embodies what you want it to mean. So we changed it to Creative Edinburgh will unite, inspire, and promote the creative, cultural, and tech sectors of Edinburgh. And we were really happy with that because we felt that really represented what we were doing. And like I said earlier, you might find if you're going for a long time, your vision changes over the years, and it's just always about going back and making sure that it means something to you and your co-directors or colleagues. Our mission, well, was to help creative businesses in Edinburgh to connect and thrive. And our values were fivefold. So the members were always first. Everything we do is driven by what our members tell us is important to them. So we never designed something and tried to sell it to our members. We used, again, a user-centered design approach, but a human-centered design approach where we spoke directly to our members, asked them what do they want, and that was what curated our programme. So it was always driven by membership. Quality, we only offer services which have been designed specifically to meet the creative sector's needs. Quality was really important to us. There was a lot of different events driven towards creative businesses, but we felt that we wanted to stand out for consistency and quality and innovation. Approachability, we're a small not-for-profit organisation led by two creative entrepreneurs. We understand the sector's challenges and needs. So myself and my co-director and business partner, we were both freelancers within the creative and cultural industries, so we understood the challenges there were for creative businesses. There was only two of us at the time. When we started up, we shared the role of director over 5 days, but now 13 years in, they've got a full team of people and are doing amazingly. Collaboration, we believe we can achieve more by working with others. Part of that is because our budget was so small at the start that we had to collaborate in order to offer a larger variety of services and opportunities to our members. So we collaborated with as many like-minded organisations and people to deliver stuff in unison or in collaboration, which cut our costs. But it also brought in a network, because whoever we collaborated with, we also connected with their network and they connected with our network. And it was good collaboration opportunities for our membership, our community. And in innovation, we're not scared to take risks or try new things. That was at the core of everything we did. We wanted to do things differently. We were a small organisation of two, so we could pivot quite quickly and we're quite nimble. And we felt that should be a strength when we were shaping what we did. So this is just something I've put together as a kind of reasoning and behind the full force of why vision, mission, and values is really important. Your vision, mission, and values can form your business boundaries. They can empower you to say no. They can also create trust, transparency, and reliability between you and your community, audience, or members. Now, each of these tools that we will take you through will basically form the backbone of your business plan. Your vision, mission, and values is part of your elevator pitch. It's what your stakeholders, your funders, your sponsors will want to hear. What does your business mean to you? What do we get by funding you and supporting you? Your vision, mission, and values are also really good at creating boundaries. So when you're starting out or you're fresh in your business model, your vision, mission, and values almost act like a traffic light system and tell you what to say no to, what to say yes to, and what maybe to put as a maybe. This is really important because sometimes it's easy to say yes to everything because you feel like you have to take everything on, particularly if there's budget attached to it. But if you always go back to your vision, mission, and values, you'll be true to yourself, true to your business values, and also true and transparent to your community. And by being transparent and true to those values, your community will buy into that and believe in that. So it's really, really important. So when you go to do your vision, mission, and values, just take as much time as you need to, because it's only 3 words, but actually there's 3 really important words that you need really important answers to. And so have a think about it, come back to it, start it, have, do something else for a while, go back to it. Don't feel forced to fill this in 10 minutes. This might be something that you come back to quite a lot as you develop the other parts of your business plan, because it might make more sense to do that. So, it's something that people can do in half an hour. It's something that people might take a couple of hours to get it right. The less wording, the better. And don't put any more than 4 or 5 values under the values section. Otherwise, you will not be able to commit to that. So have a go and see how you get on with that. The second part of the webinar today is called a theory of change. So a theory of change is really important in order to see the value or the impact that you want to see in your business. What impact do you want your business to have, not only now, but in the future, and to who? So your theory of change also forms the backbone of your business plan. When people are starting their business plan, I often direct them to the theory of change, because actually it answers quite a lot of the questions that form the backbone of your business plan. So just to take you along, again, this is a Nesta tool and was part of the Creative Hub Leaders Toolkit. And in this one, there's 5 sections, but you might find online that you find a variety of different versions of theory of changes, and just choose whatever one's best for you. But I find that this one, the simplified one, with just the 5 columns, is more than enough to grab what I need when I'm using it. So the first one, the problem, what is the problem you're trying to address, or the need that you want to fulfill through your creative business, or your cultural business, or through your creative hub? Who are your stakeholders? So who is it a problem for, and who else cares? Activities, what action will you take to create this change? Impact, in the long term, what will happen as a result of your activities? Now, sometimes I will write what the impact I would like to see in a year is, and then the impact I'd like to see in 5 years is. Now, with the 5 years option, you have to build in longitudinal evaluation to that, but we can talk about that later. And then evidence, well, I just touched on there. How will you show that your activities have achieved the intended impact? So what evaluation will you do, as baseline evaluation, or throughout the course of your business or particular project, in order to show that you have fulfilled the impact you wanted to get from the very beginning? So this is another example theory of change. And this is for a creative hub again. So just to give you an idea of one that's been filled out. So what was the problem? Well, we want to create a home for creatives. Who are the stakeholders? Creative industry course lecturers and students, creatives based in corporate organisations, so entrepreneurs, corporates looking to engage with creatives, organisations looking to engage with creatives, funders looking to support creatives. What activities do you want to create? So events, workshops, advice sessions, access to equipment, desk space, online network. And what impact do you want to have? Well, and under this section, try and put as many numbers as possible. So rather than just saying we want to deliver, workshops and events annually, put a number against each of these to make them SMART objectives. So here there's 20. Our events and workshops will reach 1,000 plus people annually. We will house 50 creatives in our space, and we will build a reputation as the go-to organisation supporting creatives. And then evidence, so how will they show that they have gathered that impact or created that impact? We'll do a yearly survey to our hub tenants, a yearly survey to the wider mailing list of people who attend our programmes but don't have a desk space with us. Evaluation forms are at every event and workshop, and media coverage on our hub team as sector experts. I've pulled a few other examples. This one, I used to work at British Council, and the team there was the creative economy team, and we developed this collaboratively and got a wonderful illustrator to design it, Ella Britton. And so you can see here that, who were our stakeholders, who were the people that we wanted to focus on. That was individuals, companies and business, civil society organisations, policy and decision makers. And then what did we want to do to create that impact? And then what was the impact we wanted to create? So you can break it down and you can make it really visual and really creative. It doesn't have to be, a bog standard box situation. It can be a really beautiful illustration. And actually, we used to share this one slide with, new funders or organizations that we're working with, and they really liked it because it really kind of portrayed our ambition and the impact we wanted to have. And it quickly showed them how they could connect with us or collaborate with us as well. So it was a really useful guide for us. So we're into our third part of the webinar. Impact measurement. Impact measurement is hugely important. More and more now, you're having to, every creative business or cultural business, creative hub, creative freelancer, is having to almost portray and show what their impact is, not only in figures, but also in stories. And so understanding this from the beginning when you're developing your business or when you're refreshing your business is really, really important. There's a really good go-to guide that I would highly recommend, the Field Guide to Human-Centered Design, and it's been developed by IDEO. It's their design kit, and it really takes you through the human-centered approach to evaluation. So I know I've mentioned this a couple of times already, but human-centered design or user-centered design, as some people call it, it's all about putting your customer in amongst the development of what you're trying to do. So rather than develop in isolation and then try and sell it to your customer or your community, it's bring your customer or your community in, get their feed in across the process, and then once you've finished, you already have buy-in and loyalty, and you will have designed something that's actually required by your kind of target community. It brings that human element in rather than looking at everything as graphs and numbers and figures. And it's the way forward. It's the way that all the multinational, international, particularly creative ones are stepping forward. They're all using human-centered design or user-centered design approaches to things. So I would highly recommend, you can buy this as a book, a hardback book. I think it's £55, but you can also download a PDF version for free. So I highly recommend that you do that. It's really helpful. Also, looking at, how to kind of transcribe your impact, you can do this at different stages. You can do it, looking at what you want your impact to be, and then evaluate what your impact is as the process goes along and at the end. Atoli, who are obviously based in Istanbul and across the world and are an amazing creative hub and organisation, have developed a really wonderful tool which is open sourced for anyone to use, and it's called the Impact Compass. And you can't really see it in this slide. We'll put it in the webinar guide, the link to it, but it's on a Miro board. But it basically takes you through what you think the impact will be before you even start something. What's the impact on the organisation? What's the impact on stakeholders or funders or partners? And then what's the impact on your people and the planet? And it's a really lovely way to kind of guide yourself and see whether certain approaches are going to work before you even start. So I really recommend that you look at that tool. It's really wonderful, and they've got many other wonderful tools as well. Another approach to evaluating is something that was mentioned in the Creative Hub's report developed by British Council. And it was a kind of four-pronged approach to creating a discussion, an evaluation discussion. And it was looking at your values, your beneficiaries, your data collection, and your content. So for instance, again, creative hubs, it's really hard to evaluate the impact of creative hubs because they're all so different. Creative hubs are like fingerprints. None of them are the same. Their business strategies, their business plans are all very different. So to use one particular approach to evaluation is never going to work. However, if you look at, establishing the core values, the identity around that hub, and looking at performance indicators that are true to that and what key impacts you would like to evidence, you can start to describe your own journey. So the second point is beneficiaries, identifying key beneficiaries in your network, whether that's individuals, companies, volunteers, freelancers. These are the sources of your stories of change, which can then be communicated to partners, funders, and stakeholders. And we'll go into that in a little minute. So looking at the people maybe that you, doesn't have to be a creative hub, it can be a creative business or a cultural business, you know, other customers or clients or part of your community, and who certain people have been really helpful. And also the other end of the stick, certain people haven't been so helpful. I would bring a mixture of both into your evaluation. And then ask your beneficiaries to agree, you know, get a certain portion of people and then ask them to agree to provide 4 lots of data over a period of 3 years. Again, it doesn't need to be just for a creative hub, it can be for a creative organisation. So for instance, it could be once when in joining up, then once annually for 3 years. On joining, your beneficiaries provide baseline data, which you keep. And then as you connect with them over the next 3 years, you can relate the new information to the baseline information, and that's what forms your output. The things that you'll be looking for are like number of new connections and collaborations, company growth, talent development, new products or services launched, health and wellbeing impacts, new press and marketing outputs, you know, etc., etc. Also, their impact on environment, to impact on society, impact on the economy. You know, your triple approach is also a really useful consideration. Another way to kind of evaluate what you do is to have kind of trusted groups as well. You can develop steering groups who feed into particular processes. You can have steering groups that feed into programming. You can have advisory groups who maybe are temporary groups that advise on particular stages of your business or programming or outputs. And then you have a board of trustees who also keep an eye on that kind of high level strategy, kind of your financial and your policy side of things. And they're really, really handy to have. However, one partner that we did find really useful for evaluation was local universities. I'm not sure how popular it is across Turkey, but in the UK it's really popular for creative organisations to sometimes collaborate with universities that have a creative course within it, and almost offering a live project. So for Creative Edinburgh, the Creative Hub that I co-led on, we partnered up with a university called Napier University, and we were given a variety of students who then came along and we worked with to say, this is what we'd love to evaluate, but we just don't have the time. And they went off and developed an evaluation framework and went out and spoke to lots of our members, to our partners, to our funders, and came back with a pool of information that was so helpful in reviewing, you know, how our first year was, how our second year was, how our third year was. So I really highly recommend, if that is a possibility, working with university students to help with that. It helps you to inform you on your business going forward, and it helps students by giving them a live project to work on and another line on their CV when they graduate. So this is another tool to understand how to develop your evaluation, and this is taken from Creative Hub Leaders Toolkit. And this again is a very simplified tick box tool, but again, you can do a much more illustrative kind of arty version of this, just whatever works best for you. But in this, it's looking at what is the change you want to see. So again, that's where you can bring in your vision, mission, and values. So in the metrics, what evidence will you gather? What are the impact measures you need to capture to see that the change is happening? Baseline data and targets. Where are you starting from? What data is available to show this? Having a baseline enables you to show a change has occurred. Sources of data. What people or documents can give you the information you need? What existing data is already out there? You don't want to replicate or waste time if there's information already out there. Or maybe it's something that you could collaborate on compiling the information together. Data collection tools. What tools and methods will you use to measure your impact? What is the best way to engage your beneficiaries, and what can you automate? Data collection frequency. How often and at what points will you collect data to understand the impact of your activities? And now this is the part that I'd say that creative businesses do fall down because it's the part that's got the least funding. You might have just enough money to evaluate how you're doing. And even at that, you're time poor. There's never enough time to really spend the time you want to evaluate and reflect on your work. However, if there's an opportunity, and again, maybe it's linking up with the university, to do a kind of more longitudinal evaluation, where you're not just evaluating the direct impact that you're having now, but you go back to it and you revisit it again and again, maybe over a 5-year period, and then you collect all of that information and you pull the reflections from that. That can give you a much better understanding of your business and opportunities, as well as what's working and what's not working, and who you need to be talking to, who you might not have thought about talking to. So highly recommend that kind of longitudinal approach for anyone that's wanting to develop, either to refresh their business model. You know, if your business has been running for 5 or 6 years and you kind of want to go a different direction, well, maybe a kind of longer term evaluation would be useful to show what's the impact of changing your business focus, and how do you make sure that you go in the right direction to continue that way. And then that's again when you can bring in your steering groups, your advisory groups, to make sure that you're fulfilling the purpose that you want to. It's all about developing what I would call touch points. So obviously your quantitative evaluation or research is all number driven, and your qualitative is all data driven, not data driven, more story driven. Yeah, I've got them the wrong way around. Quantitative is statistics and impacts, and qualitative is stories of impact. That was a bit of a mistake. So your qualitative stuff are things like annual reports, funding reports, pitches, newsletters, e-bulletins, your events that you host, blogs that you write, podcasts that you deliver, vox pops, and case studies. Case studies can be super useful, you know, and just, you know, 1-page case studies that you can quickly present to funders or partners to say, this is how we're doing this, you know, this is the impact of our work through the eyes of this particular person or community. Highly recommend case studies. The quantitative data, again, there's obviously numbers involved with annual reports and funding reports and business pitches and board reports, and also very, very helpful for reporting upwards. Maybe you're part of an organisation that there's a creative section within it, and you need to report upward to, you know, upper management who maybe don't necessarily have a foot in creative industries. Figures can be really obviously helpful and pushing your story and ensuring your future purpose within an organisation that maybe isn't quite au fait with the creative approaches. So that was a kind of quick fire through 3 different elements there, and you can come back to them and refresh them. Again, you can get all the tools from the webinar guide. And like I said, with the vision, mission, and values, even with a business plan, as soon as you do a business plan, it's out of date. So you do have to go back and refresh things. A mentor of mine of the past said to me in January is the best time to refresh not only your CV, but your business plan or different approaches. And that is a good time to do that. So I hope this webinar has been useful. Up next is Designing Your Business Part 2 with Gillian Eason, and she'll be exploring blueprinting, financial planning, and business planning. And again, please refer to the webinar guide where you can view the complete presentation, which I'll fix the last slide, and find out all the tools mentioned throughout. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope that's been really useful, and please come back and visit our visitors for the second webinar. Thank you.